The idea of poverty has changed dramatically over the last century. In the 21st century, it's no longer only individuals who don't have enough money to cover their basic needs that are considered poor. There's a new category of people who are deemed the new poor, those who are struggling to make ends meet despite having a steady job and income. In this video, we'll discuss 12 signs that you may be part of the new poor. 1. You no longer have health insurance. In a world where healthcare is becoming increasingly expensive and inaccessible, it's easy to fall into the new poor category if you can't afford health insurance. Not having health insurance leaves you vulnerable to potential medical issues that could be costly if left untreated. Without health insurance, you may be unable to visit a doctor or receive prescriptions when needed. This can leave you feeling helpless and frustrated with your financial situation. You may find yourself looking for creative solutions such as bartering services or relying on friends and family to help you out of difficult situations. It's important to keep in mind that even though you don't have health insurance, there are still ways to get medical help if you need it. Look into community health centers, free clinics, and other low-cost options to get the care you need. 2. You can't afford to pay your rent or mortgage. The fact that you can't afford to pay your rent or mortgage is a sure sign that you are the new poor. It's a difficult situation to be in, especially when the cost of living is increasing while your income remains the same. Not being able to keep up with the payments on your rent or mortgage can have devastating financial and psychological impacts. If you find yourself in this situation, there are a few things you can do. First, check to see if you qualify for any government housing assistance programs. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, offers many programs that can help, including subsidized housing, low-income housing, and Section 8 vouchers. You should also contact your landlord or mortgage company to discuss your options. It's possible that they may be willing to work out a repayment plan or negotiate a lower rent or mortgage payment. Make sure that you're aware of your legal rights as a tenant or homeowner. Different states have different laws when it comes to rental agreements, foreclosures, and other issues related to housing. Knowing these laws can help you protect your rights and find a solution that works for both you and your landlord or mortgage company. 3. You have to choose between buying food and paying your utility bills. Having to choose between buying food and paying your utility bills can be a sign that you are the new poor. This difficult decision is made by far too many people in the current economic climate, and it's a sign of financial strain. When faced with this decision, there are a few things you can do. First, look for ways to reduce your utility bill, such as cutting back on energy consumption or switching to a different provider. If that doesn't work, consider finding a part-time job to make extra money to cover both necessities. You may also want to seek out organizations or charities in your area that can help you with food or utility bills. If you are really struggling, you may need to seek out financial assistance from the government or other organizations. There are many programs available that can help you make ends meet, so don't be afraid to ask for help. In the end, no one should have to make the decision between buying food and paying their bills. But if you find yourself in this situation, it can be a sign that you are the new poor. The important thing is to take action and find a solution before your situation becomes more dire. 4. You rely on food pantries and soup kitchens to eat. Living paycheck to paycheck can leave you without enough money to feed yourself and your family. Food pantries and soup kitchens are a great option for those in need, but they often don't provide a complete diet. When you rely on these resources, you may find that you are missing key nutrients in your diet, especially fruits and vegetables. You may have to wait in long lines or jump through hoops just to get a meal. Even with this resource, you're still likely to be undernourished. You may also be embarrassed about relying on food pantries and soup kitchens, which can make the experience even more difficult. No matter how hard it is, it's important to remember that you are not alone in relying on these services. Millions of people around the world are in the same situation and depend on them for daily meals. Don't be ashamed of your situation and make sure to take care of your health as best as you can while using these resources. 5. You can't afford to buy new clothes or replace worn-out ones. Being unable to buy new clothes or replace worn-out ones is a sure sign that you are the new poor. For many people, a wardrobe full of fashionable and well-fitting clothing is one of the most effective ways to make a good impression on colleagues and prospective employers. However, when you can no longer afford to keep up with trends or to replace worn-out items, it can be a sign that you are facing financial hardship. In addition to not having the means to purchase new clothes, the lack of disposable income also often means that you are unable to keep up with basic maintenance needs, such as laundering and mending clothes. This can further compound the issue, as ill-fitting and dingy clothing can give off the appearance of disorganization and carelessness. If you are unable to buy new clothes or repair worn-out items, it is important to find alternatives to address your clothing needs. One possibility is looking into local charities and organizations that offer free clothing and other resources for those in need. Furthermore, there are often opportunities for volunteers to receive free clothing for their labor. While this may not be ideal, it can help you avoid making a bad impression with dated or torn clothing. 6. You can't afford your medication. Medications are essential for many people, but they can be expensive. Many people with chronic conditions may need multiple prescriptions that cost hundreds of dollars each month. The cost of medication can be a major burden on those living paycheck to paycheck. If you find yourself constantly struggling to pay for your medication, you may be part of the new poor. The rising cost of medication is due in part to monopolistic practices from pharmaceutical companies, which can lead to exorbitant prices for even generic medications. Additionally, health insurance policies can limit coverage or exclude certain medications entirely. This leaves individuals and families struggling to afford their necessary medications. If you're having difficulty affording your medications, there are some steps you can take to try and make it more manageable. You can ask your doctor about cheaper generic options for your prescriptions, as well as look into discounts available through programs like GoodRx. You should also check if there are any government-funded programs in your state that can help cover the cost of your medication. Finally, you can reach out to pharmaceutical companies directly to see if they have any assistance programs. Despite these efforts, affording medication can still be difficult. If you find yourself unable to afford the necessary medications you need, it could be a sign that you are part of the new poor. 7. Your emergency fund is under $1,000. If your emergency fund is under $1,000, then you may be struggling financially. An emergency fund is an important financial tool that serves as a buffer between you and unexpected costs. It should have enough money to cover 3 to 6 months of living expenses in case of a job loss or medical emergency. Unfortunately, many people don't have the resources to build an adequate emergency fund. This can lead to costly credit card debt or putting other bills on hold until the next paycheck comes in. It's important to start building up your emergency fund as soon as possible, even if it's just a few dollars a month. You can also look into setting up a savings account that is solely dedicated to emergency funds and make sure to contribute regularly. By having an emergency fund, you can reduce the risk of financial instability and be better prepared for whatever life throws at you. Taking the time and effort to save now will give you more freedom to make choices in the future. 8. Your car is broken down and you can't afford to fix it. One of the most visible signs that you're struggling financially is if you can't afford to repair your car. A car is a huge expense for many people, and having it break down can be a major financial burden. Many of us rely on our cars to get to work, go to school, and make other necessary trips. Without a working vehicle, you may find yourself unable to get to where you need to go. The cost of repairs can be more than you can afford if you don't have an emergency fund set aside. Even if you do have an emergency fund, it may not cover the entire cost of the repair. And if you don't have enough money saved, you may have to take out a loan or put the repairs on a credit card. Neither of these options is ideal, as they could lead to more debt in the future. In addition to the financial stress, a broken down car can also be emotionally stressful. It can be demoralizing to realize that you can't afford to fix it and that it's putting your life on hold. That feeling of helplessness and powerlessness is something that many people living in poverty experience every day. If you find yourself in this situation, there are a few things you can do. You could try talking to friends and family members to see if anyone is willing to lend you the money or help pay for the repairs. You could also reach out to local organizations like churches or non-profits to see if they offer any type of assistance with car repairs. Finally, there are some government programs that can provide assistance with auto repairs. Having a broken down car is an unfortunately common experience among those living in poverty. Although it can be difficult and stressful, there are resources available that can help you get your car running again. 9. You live paycheck to paycheck. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, it means that your income barely covers your necessary expenses. Even if you manage to save a little bit each month, it's not enough to build up a financial cushion for yourself. In this situation, you're one unexpected expense away from being in financial trouble. Living paycheck to paycheck can also lead to long-term problems like debt, as it can be difficult to keep up with bills and other necessary costs. It's important to try to create a budget and stick to it in order to prevent further financial hardship. You may also want to look into finding additional sources of income or cutting back on unnecessary expenses in order to create some breathing room in your budget. 10. Everyone around you is living the same way as you are. It can be a lonely feeling when you are the only one in your circle who is struggling financially. It can be even more difficult if the people around you have a much higher standard of living than you do. But it's becoming increasingly common for people to be living paycheck to paycheck. This means that you may not be alone in your financial struggle. Many people are having to make hard choices between paying rent, buying food, or covering their utility bills. This can create a sense of isolation as you are surrounded by those who seemingly have no financial problems. It can be difficult to talk about the hardships you are facing when everyone around you appears to be doing better. But remember that you are not alone in this. Many people are going through similar financial struggles, and many are just a paycheck away from facing the same problems that you are currently dealing with. The key is to find support and understanding from those in similar situations. You can find solidarity and companionship among those who understand what you are going through, and that can help you stay afloat during these difficult times. 11. Inflation is outpacing your earning power. Inflation is the general increase in prices over time and can have a major impact on your financial security. Unfortunately, for many of us, our wages have not been able to keep up with the rate of inflation. This means that our purchasing power is declining and it is becoming increasingly difficult to afford the same items that we could in the past. Inflation affects all of us, but the new poor are particularly vulnerable because they don't have the same access to capital and resources as those who are better off. This can lead to spiraling debt, inability to pay bills, and other hardships. As prices continue to rise, it becomes harder to make ends meet and save for the future. The best way to protect yourself from the effects of inflation is to ensure that your income is increasing at the same rate or faster than inflation. This can be done by getting raises, finding more lucrative employment opportunities, or supplementing your income with additional sources. It is also important to create an emergency fund so that you can handle unexpected expenses without having to rely on credit cards or other forms of debt. By understanding how inflation impacts our lives and taking steps to ensure that our incomes are growing at the same rate or faster, we can help ourselves stay ahead of this economic phenomenon and ensure our long-term financial security. 12. You have no investable assets. Not having any investable assets is a sure sign that you're living on the edge of poverty. Investable assets refer to things like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and other investments that can help generate income. Without them, you are not able to take advantage of the potential returns that these investments can provide. Without a nest egg to draw from, it's nearly impossible to build long-term wealth or financial security. This means that you are more vulnerable to economic downturns and shifts in the market, leaving you unable to cushion yourself financially if something were to happen. Furthermore, not having any investable assets means that you're likely not setting aside money for retirement, leaving you without any safety net if you decide to retire in the future. Do you belong to the new poor? In order not to miss a video, if you found the video informative, don't forget to like and subscribe to Financial Literacy. I appreciate you viewing, and I'll see you in the next one.